Good morning. Welcome to another session on environmental impact assessment.
So we shall continue with Unit 2, Methodologies. Course outcome, illustrate the methods of EAA with case studies. Learning outcome, discuss the methods used in EAA. Specific outcomes, list of methods used in EAA and explanation of the Adhoc method. Right? So we shall continue with wherever we left. So we are going to actually start the Adhoc method in this session. Although I wanted to discuss about the Adhoc method in elaborate way, I have not been able to do that in the past few sessions. So here we'll see what actually Adhoc method is. So basically Adhoc method indicates the broad areas of possible impacts by listing composite environmental parameters, right, which are likely to be affected by any development, right. So as I said, this is a very crude method, and you're just going to list out some of the parameters which are going to get affected by any project. An ad hoc method involves assembly of team of specialists to identify the impacts in their area of expertise. In this method, each environmental area such as air, water is taken separately and the nature of the impacts such as short term or long term, reversible, irreversible are considered. So we have seen all what this all means, like the short term, long term, reversible, irreversible. We've seen in the first unit. Short term is the impact that is persistent only for a short period of time. Long term is the impact that will be persistent for a longer duration. Reversible is, for example, somebody gets a disease and he gets cured from that, so it is a reversible impact, meaning the impact can be reduced or removed. So irreversible impact is the impact is permanent. You cannot get the person back from that particular disease, right? It stays with him permanently. Ad hoc methods are for rough assessment of total impacts, giving the broad areas of possible impacts and the general nature of these possible impacts. For example, the impacts on animals and plant life may be stated as significant but beneficial, right? So we are just going to, what do you say, crudely tell that the impact is significant but it's a beneficial one. We are not going to quantify it. We are not going to say in detail about all the impacts. In the ad hoc methods, the assessor relies on intuitive approach and makes a broad-based qualitative assessment. So intuitive approach means whatever he feels based on his experience, right? That is what the assessor will say, that these kind of impacts are possible. So, and based on that, he makes a broad qualitative assessment. Qualitative assessment means you are saying that this is good, this is bad, impact will be very severe, not severe, etc. You cannot quantify it in terms of some numerical values, or you're not going to give some numbers to it, or you're not going to tell how much will be the impact. You can just say that it will be good or bad, that's all. How much bad it is going to be, that you cannot define. This method serves as a preliminary assessment which helps in identifying more important areas. So this is a preliminary method. Maybe this is one of the reasons why in the table you don't have the ad hoc method, because it's just a preliminary method. Maybe before going into the into any one of those methods, they may do a crude ad hoc method, right? This is one way of seeing that particular table which we have seen in the last session. So what are the parameters that are seen in the ad hoc method? Wildlife, endangered species, natural vegetation, grazing of animals, exotic species, right? um, Exotic species is something like similar to rare species. Social characteristics, natural drainage, groundwater, air, noise, visual description, open space, recreation, health, safety, economic values, public facilities, etc. So these are some things which may be considered while evaluating a project based on the ad hoc method. The ad hoc methods, while being very simple, can be performed without any training, merely present the pertinent information of of a project's effects on the environment without any sort of relative weighting or any cause-effect relationships. Right. So here we are not going to see any relationship between the effects and the causes. And as I told, just like in a network method, we are seeing the relationship between various parameters, various impacts. We are not going to do any of those things here. So it actually is a very simple method, and doesn't require that much training. Why? Because you just need the information about the project and you can tell these are the parameters that are going to get affected. You are not going to link the relationship between each of them. It provides minimal guidance for impact analysis while suggesting broad areas of possible impacts. You will get only minimal guidance on the impact analysis, right? It is not a detailed method. It does not even state the actual impacts on specific parameters that will be affected. So as I said in the beginning, they may not even tell what will be the type of impact. The other ad hoc method has the following drawbacks. It gives no assurance that it encompasses a comprehensive set of relevant impacts, right? It does not say all the impacts that are going to come on the environment, right? No assurance of that. It lacks consistency in analysis. Why? Because it is based on some intuitive approach, and there is no consistency in the analysis, as it may select different criteria to evaluate different group of factors, right? And it is inherently inefficient, as it requires a considerable effort to identify and assemble an appropriate panel for each assessment, right? A panel is required to assess a particular project in terms of the impacts on the environment, so it is not really efficient method. An expert, as the expert judgment in assessing the primary impacts is done in an ad hoc manner, it cannot be replicated, making it to review or analyze the conclusions in EAA, right? So the methodology is very crude method. You cannot replicate the same method again or once more. It cannot be done. Why? Because it is a set of analysis. As considerable amount of information about the social, economical, biological, and physical environment are to be collected and analyzed in the EA process of any project activity, ad hoc methods fail to do this in any meaningful way, right? So ad hoc method cannot do a good job of, accounting for all the social, economic, biological, physical environment. Why? Because you have to collect all the data regarding each of these factors, and ad hoc method fails to do this in a meaningful way. Because of the above drawbacks, it is not recommended as a method for impact analysis. It is not recommended as a method for impact analysis. This is also the reason why in the table does not have the ad hoc method. It is after all ad hoc method and has utility only when other methods cannot be used for lack of expertise, resources, and other necessities. So the best thing is to go for the other methods like the network, matrices, checklists. You got overlay analysis, simulation, modeling method, and so many other methods which are mentioned in the table. So um, only when you don't have resources to do that method, the other methods, you don't have expertise to do the remaining methods, you don't have necessity of doing the other methods, that is when you go for the ad hoc method, right? So this is an example of an ad hoc method, actually, for comparing the reservoir management, right? So some of the items that are involved here is the number of reservoirs on that particular system, the surface area, the shoreline distance, the irrigation area, right? Reduced open area because of project and associated population increases, inundated sites means flooded sites, reduced soil erosion, improved fisheries, provision of flood control measures, new potential malarial areas, meaning disease causing areas, additional employment of people. So these are some of the things that are considered when you look at a particular project. So this project is related to construction of a dam, right? So dam is a structure that is constructed across a particular river, right, to store the water. So the water area that is behind the dam, the area that is covering the water spread, is called as the reservoir. So they are looking at some 2 or 3 alternatives, right? So first alternative is having about 4 reservoirs, B is having 1 reservoir, C is having 0 reservoirs. So naturally they will not go for C because there is no possibility of any reservoir there. So either they have to go for A or B. So among this A or B, they look at all the other parameters that have been listed over here, right? For example, the surface area that is going to be covered in A is about 8,500 hectares, while in B it is about 1,300 hectares only. The reservoir shoreline is 190 kilometers in A, but in B it is about 65 kilometers only. Irrigation area is about 40,000 hectares in A, while in B it's only 12,000 hectares, right? And inundated sites, but the inundated sites will be the area that is going to get flooded will be 11 in A, but it's going to be only 3 in B, right? So number of fisheries or the enhancement of fisheries 4 times will be in A, 1 time in B. Soil erosion is also very high. Soil erosion is a negative impact, right? The flooding inundation is a negative impact, which is going to be very high in A but very less in B. Flood control measures available in both areas. Malarial areas, the spread of diseases will be very high in A but very less in B. But employment of persons will be 1,000 people in A, but it is only 200 in B. So it is just giving you a rough estimate of what are the positive and negative impacts. Based on this, you'll have to decide which one you should go for, right? So when you go for A, you got so many benefits like more area, more employment opportunities, more fisheries, more irrigation area, more surface area, everything. But the risk is also more. Why? Because flooding will be more, and soil erosion will be more. So now the committee will have to decide, whether they really want to go for A or whether they can be satisfied with B, right? So this is just an example of what the ad hoc method is. So these are some quiz questions which you'll see in the quiz form, right? So we'll stop here. Thank you.
Thus, we come to the end of this session. Thank you for your participation. Looking forward to meeting you in the next session.